356 Pre-A Speedster, 356 SC, 356B. In this strange time vortex, there is a lot of classical Porsches. This time, I've been caught by a red 911. Behind me, the Porsche 911L Sportomatic soft window. That's a long name. Why is this the L? Because it had 130 horsepower in 1967. The T version had 110 horsepower and the S version had 150. Can you imagine driving a 150 horsepower car as light as this in 67? This one with 130 went 204 kilometers per hour. Crazy. And why is it a Sportomatic? Well, because it has a semi-automatic transmission. What does that mean? I'll explain it to you when I drive it. The 911 Targa was a Porsche that once again blew wind into the hair of the badge's enthusiasts for convertibles. A curiosity are the windscreen wipers. They're not black to look cool and sporty, but because the chrome ones had too much of a glare. As a kid, I saw these forged wheels which burned into my memory, and now I immediately equate them with a Porsche. Chrome was still king of decorative elements back then, but the car doesn't overuse it. The two-part roof could be taken down fairly quickly, if you craved some air inside. The roof in the middle was unlocked and removed, then folded so you could store it in the front boot. This was no Citroën C3 Pluriel, where you had to remove the pillars and leave them at home. So I have to quickly explain something. This is a cabriolet, what you would call a convertible, but this is what we call a cabriolet. This is important because of US safety laws, this arch was added and the rear seats removed. And if you had the car like this without any roofs, it was a cabriolet. But if you only took the middle roof out, it was called open air. And if you took the rear roof out, it was called fresh air, because apparently in the summer that was quite nice because you got a lot of fresh air in. You can see the 911-ness inside. A new word. Anyway, 5 big instruments on the dashboard and soft materials. The gear shifter might make you think it's a manual at first, but of course the car has the Sportomatic gearbox. The seats are still original, while the rear seats were removed to comply with American safety standards, replaced by small storage areas. At the rear of this car, of course, a boxer engine. It is a Porsche after all. But it's not a 4-cylinder boxer, it's a 6-cylinder boxer with 2 triple carburetors. Can you imagine that? It's no wonder they got 110, 130, even 150 horsepower from the S version. Air-cooled, of course, and a pretty amazing sound. And I don't mean the circular saw which you heard in the back. If you've ever heard the Volkswagen Beetles or Type 1 boxer engine, then you can imagine how this 911 sounds, of course with a more sporty note. So now I'm driving the Porsche Targa the L version, the Sportomatic, the soft window. There's so many different additional names it has and titles. And I promised you to explain what this Sportomatic is before. Now, it really is like an automatic gearbox, although it is called a semi-automatic gearbox. So instead of having your normal PRND shifter, you have a manual shifter here, as if you had a manual gearbox, but you still have park, reverse, low, drive, and so on and so forth. So in essence, you press your brakes, you put the gear into drive or low in this instance, and you drive away. That's it. And the interesting thing is, because obviously there's no clutch, it's an automatic, but it has to sense when you're going to change this to let go of the clutch. When you touch the gear shifter, it releases the clutch. Really interesting. There's a switch inside that does that apparently, but I call it witchcraft. Magic. Oh yeah, maybe I should tell you a bit more about this before I end. I'm just looking at whether people are going to turn in, because everyone is fascinated by this car, as am I. The dashboard is giant. It's actually arched towards me in true Porsche style. There's 5 of these instruments, everything going and dipping, and I don't know. I've got an old classic stereo, semi soft dash, and of course this open roof. It's so lovely to have all this air coming in. It's nice. So there we go. I love these old cars. I'll be honest, this technology was quite interesting, but I do prefer the classic Porsches with a manual gearbox. Although, in Targa's defense, the owner didn't drive it much, so the engine was a little bit sleepy still. I'm sure if I were to take it for a long drive and properly bring everything to temperature, it would drive much better. Fortunately, oh no, the horror, the time vortex refuses to let me go. The next one in my sights is the Porsche 912.